I am so knackered.
Wow, you did that.
Hello everybody, my name is Jayson.
I'm Becky.
And we're a pair of geeks and welcome to the stream every Friday, except for next Friday. But
Yes.
apart from that, every Friday, and also podcast people as well listening.
So yes, our first night on our regular night, and we're going to break it straight away next week with good reason.
Yes.
Let's talk about what we've got in the show tonight. So I've got my little list here of things.
How very nice.
Character building and flaws. That's our first topic.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about running a convention game and playing a convention game.
Mm-hmm.
What's
'Cause
different,
that's important
what
as
to
well.
do, and everything else. And we're going to talk about prophecies. So that's our kind of key topics for the night. I've just realised the chat is not connected. That was a bad start, wasn't it?
Well, while you do that, why don't I explain why I am knackered and can't make words? I've just come back from
graphics. It's not connecting.
Oh no, why not?
I can fix this.
Yeah, so anyway, I've just come back from an escape room. It's apparently the hardest that this company does, and there's like so many rooms in various regions of where we are. It was really good fun, but I kind of wish Becky was there. Cause
Is that because I solve escape rooms?
you solved them really well. Right, let's see if it works. Okay, I have to do
Why don't you take us into our first topic?
Sure, absolutely. So, character building and flaws. Yeah, so in terms of building a character, so character creation, the very, very start, or say you want to develop them a bit more, give them some flaws. You know, there's this whole thing of like the edgelord of like, oh, my parents are dead, or oh, I need to get revenge, or okay, that's boring.
Well, I think D&D 5th made a huge leap forward over previous editions in this regard because they added in a load of sort of role-playing stuff to the character sheet. They gave you a flaw, they gave you I'm trying to remember all the things, an ideal and a bond. And I thought that was a good start. You know, it pushed people in the right direction. I know a lot of people ignore that, and I know it's a bit. You know, once you've kind of rolled on those rounds, you're not very.
I find them
random
quite
with
restricted
rules.
now.
The point, I think, is to absolutely do those things, but don't necessarily take from the book. Like if you've played a few games, then maybe it's time to not use the book and just be creative yourself. But of course, the problem there is, well, how do you do something that's unique and original when you've not got the inspiration of the book? But the thing is, those random tables in the book aren't very diverse. They're the same kind of things over and over.
The thing I find the most restrictive is the actual background classes themselves. I tend to find, okay, I've got an idea for a background, I then try and match it up with, I don't know, say a hermit or a charlatan, and I just can't find a nice fit, but there are stats associated with each thing, so you've got to pick something.
Yeah, and they really didn't help when they published the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide.
Oh, you love that one.
Oh, I hate that one.
Hello, Fuke!
Hi, Fuke. So, yeah, they published this, which added a load more backgrounds, and most of them, it's so bad, this book. It actually says, just roll on the table for X in the player's manual. Like, they couldn't be bothered to think of 6 more things to roll on. So it's really, really bad.
So Fuke is saying...
It's from one of our games. There's a note from one of our games.
Yeah, that's my rumour. Literally running to work. Hope you have a good show. Was watching your old shows. Why did you go to 1st edition before 5th out of all the options?
Why did I go to 1st edition? Well, I mean, I started with D&D 1st edition. So if you're watching really old videos, you're seeing videos from the era when that is what I was playing. Because I I did go to second and I went back to first, and then I did try 3.5 and I went back to first. I had to go at fourth and thought, oh god, I can't be asked for this. Went straight back to first. And then fifth came along, and I've only gone back to first a couple of times since then. I've mostly stayed with fifth edition, but I don't know how I feel about fifth really.
No?
I kind of like other things first. First edition's too restrictive. There's not enough options. The options that are there are so unbalanced. There's lots of problems with first edition. Fifth edition is better, but it's just too tactical.
You say
the action economy.
You say that, but then the 3.5, which is super tactical.
Yeah.
Like attacks of opportunity and
Well, you got that in fifth.
sidestepping, but like way more rules. Whereas I prefer the skill set, the rogue class, a few other things in 3.5 compared to fifth, where they've streamlined it and stripped it all away, and
they took too much away from the skill system in a way, didn't they?
And then they put in those weird sort of like you can go down the path of the moon and all this rubbish. I'm sorry, I absolutely hate it.
So you refer to druid circles?
Well, there's like the druid circles. There's like different paths for the rogue as well, and I don't like any of them really.
You know, I would love all that stuff if it was talking about role playing or giving ideas for role playing.
Yeah.
Instead of doing that though, it's giving mechanical rules that you can use in combat, and that's kind of where my problem with 5th edition comes in.
I also find with 5th edition, because again you sort of get various booms like, oh, you can do 2 attacks per turn, or you can have this bonus attack. You actually run out of room like writing all this stuff down. Whereas at least in 3.5, which I've played, it's like, okay, you have your attack, you can try and flank, you can do various things, but you'd have all these stupid other things, unless you've got like feats.
I do have an important point to make though, that Fugue, that's the last 2 times we've done a live stream, has gone to work as we started. You need a new job, mate.
Yes.
You've got to watch us live, come on.
He's in Canada though.
Not the point. Hi, Phil.
Yeah, but we'd be at work as well if we were watching somebody streaming 6 hours in front.
Nah, right. Get a night job.
Wow. Just ruin the quality of your life in order to watch our stream.
Yes. But
hello, Phil.
We should talk about public service announcement.
Yes.
The most awesome people in the world.
The most awesome people in the world.
Hi, Scott. Now,
hey, Scott. I am not choking this time. Thank you very much.
These people make this show possible, and without them, we wouldn't be able to buy the new sound gear I've ordered, and we're going to have next time out, because we're finally going to get some sound gear where we don't bang the table and have this happen. So
sorry for that.
It's not arrived yet, but it's going to be a boom and hopefully
anti-shock and things.
If I've ordered all the right bits.
Yeah.
So look, thank you seriously for your help, and also we use the money for the postage for ComPlus, which we'll talk about in a bit.
Indeed.
So I want to thank personally Russell Higgins, Jolly Mangina, Amber, Mike Threlful. I said Mike Threlful. That's a lie. It's Mark Threlful.
Yes, Mark.
Sorry.
His name is Mark. Yes.
I know, but live things go wrong. Brandon Fishwick, Dave Poirier, Duke Enterprises, Philip Bate, and Elizabeth Chybertit. I was so determined to get that this time. Elizabeth Chybertit-Cole. Thank you so much, guys.
Yes, Phil. Toner. We got toner.
We did. And if you want to be called out as a thank you on our stream, all you need to do is become a fruit bowl. Head over to patreon.com/pairofgeeks.
Not just thanking, we give little sneak peeks.
Yes, in fact, I've put up a couple of videos for ComPlus2 already, so
Indeed.
videos that won't be released until October this year.
We do try and do a couple of behind the scenes things, but certainly the app for me just doesn't work on my phone.
I hate the app. So yes, we were talking about backgrounds and flaws.
Yes.
Now, here's the thing: if you're not going to generate a background or flaw and bonds and all ideals and all that stuff from the 5th edition rulebook, how do you avoid falling into into tropes, and I found something on Reddit that I think
Oh
is
yes.
really
You mentioned this.
amazing. I mean, I love it because it's A, hilarious, and B, true.
From what you told
So,
me, yes.
I wish to, and we'll put links into descriptions for this later. But for now, I'm going to bring it up on screen. So we're going to shrink into the corner. This is the. I can't actually read it from here because the writing's too small, and it might be too small for you. So let me just put
If
it
it's
up.
too small, go to a
Yeah.
bigger monitor.
The random edgelord backstory table. Okay, so it's meant to be rolled with a dice. So I want you to give me, and we're going to do this right now. I want you.
Evening, Ronnie.
Hi, Ronnie. I want you to give me a random number between 1 and 100.
Okay, 59.
59. All right, let me just find that on the table. Okay, a beholder. Right, now, so that's your edgy antagonist, is a beholder.
Right.
Okay, now, another number between 1 and 100.
42.
42. Right, your edgy action is assassinated. So, a beholder assassinated.
Yeah.
Right, now we're going to do our edgy victim. Another D100.
Okay, 91.
91 is your aspirations. So a beholder assassinated your aspirations. Now we do the edgy outcome.
Metaphorically or literally? Did they actually go into my brain a bit like a mind flayer?
Edgy outcome, come on,
Yeah.
D100.
Okay, 4.
4. And it will have no effect on how you roleplay your character. I think I've roleplayed with that character.
Really?
I've certainly roleplayed with plenty where their backstory had no effect on their character. So I thought that was awesome. I found that on Reddit. Well, I didn't find it. I found it on Facebook, and the original attribution unfortunately had been gone. It came from Reddit, but I don't know who to attribute that to. But whoever wrote that table, that is just absolutely amazing because it's so true of so many people who don't bring flaws to their character.
Yeah, having said that, there is a better system, I think, for flaws than D&D 5e, which is Fate. So basically, for those of you who've never played Fate, you have things called aspects. Normally you have about 4 of them. Now you're a larger-than-life character, so most of these aspects are good, and they're a description, like a one-sentence thing, like fastest gun in the West, which you can then use in some sort of action as like a reason to do better. So if you miss, say, with a gunshot, you say, yes, but I'm the fastest gun in the West. So you can then add, say, a +2 to your roll or something like that. But you also have your trouble aspect. Now, the difference between that and the other aspects, while with the regular ones, you can use them for good, and the DM can use them for bad sometimes, the trouble is kind of flipped the other way. So the DM uses your trouble, uses your flaw as a way to make things more complicated. And basically what they do, they compel your aspects. They say, oh, but what if you have a soft spot for this person here, aka your trouble aspect? If we follow that up in this scenario, I will give you a fate point.
Right.
So you kind of use that as an incentive to actually play your flaw.
Now the thing about Fate is it's a very narrative game as opposed to D&D,
extremely
tactical
narrative,
game. Now, it kind of goes way far narrative.
Yeah.
Like somewhere in the middle is where I like to roleplay. But the other thing about Fate is those are kind of backstory details, but that is your mechanical impact on your character. They have huge mechanical implications for how you play.
Yeah.
Whereas D&D, your backstory has no mechanical impact. It's about the story. And for me, I like my background to drive narrative and drive story. Whereas Fate, those sort of background elements become mechanics.
Yeah, although it's not just your background, and you can also change your aspects. There's always one which is your portrayal, so like the description of you, that always stays the same, almost always anyway, and your trouble as well. But then you've got other ones in the middle, they can change. So, I don't know, say your leg gets blown off, that can become an aspect or something like that. So it's not completely one-dimensional, but yes, I do see a point in that it's very narrative, and then they become mechanics. It's like the two polar opposites. There's nothing in the middle.
Yeah, what I'd like to do is I'd like to just improve the characters we bring to an ordinary game, whatever the system is. You know, so like in D&D, like, yes, you've got those ideals, bonds and flaws, but it's almost too systemic in the way they're generated. But I do think those are good things to think about when you're creating a character. You know, what are the flaws of your character? I'd rather not roll it. I'd rather be creative with it myself, and I'd rather potentially tie it into a backstory, or even just, you know, an affliction that the character has. You know, nervous tics and things like that. And whereas in Fate, that nervous tic becomes a mechanical thing that will impact your actual dice rolls, in a way that's kind of good. Like if you had a nervous tic and it means every time you lie, it's obvious.
Yeah, you kind of
whereas
might do a twitch.
in D&D, you know, the proficiency with playing poker, which is a tool proficiency you can have, is kind of independent of that. Okay, so, but I think that's the situation that GMs for decades have just adjudicated. So, you know, okay, you're playing poker, but your character has a nervous tic. I'm going to give you disadvantage, or I'm going to, you know, in the old days, you know, -4, -8, whatever. And I don't know if we necessarily need a system that says these background things are, you know, need to have rules around their pluses and minuses. I think GMs can adjudicate just fine.
No,
provided players actually
do it. Yeah. But like, for example, with the poker thing, you know, if someone's role playing their tic, then you as the DM, being in character with the NPCs, could be picking up on this depending on their intelligence. Maybe you might roll something to see if they do perceive and do it that way. But yeah, it means that everybody has to be involved in the role play.
Ron is said, I do enjoy flaws in a character. Characters with perfect skills are just dull after a while. It's the flaws that make the character interesting, but they do need to be played and used.
Except for Super Priest.
It's the Drizzt effect, isn't it? The I want to play the absolutely perfect ranger with no flaw type thing. And yes, I hate that. I hate it ties it. I tell you what, right? If you role play your wounds, which I think nobody does in D&D, and it frustrates me. I once was running a little one-shot game. I had a friend come over, I laid out a little dungeon. We did some old school role playing, right? Now, he kept his character sheet, didn't role play his wounds. I had no idea that when it came to the final encounter and I'd set things up, he was sneaking around and trying to peek into the room without going in it and doing all sorts of things and arguing over mechanical effects because he wanted to be completely unseen. And this was all coming from the fact that he had 2 hit points left, and I had no idea because it wasn't describing his actions. They were saying, "I want to do this. Can I do this without being seen?" You know, very statement of fact in terms of their action. And I think if you describe your action, and you know you allow your wounds to be a temporary flaw, take huge mechanical penalties, take narrative penalties over your wounds, because I think it adds so much. You don't need rules for it. You need a kind of group understanding for it. You know that, you're really badly wounded, and that's a temporary flaw.
Maybe if you're bleeding, it leaves a trace on the floor.
Yeah, describe your actions of leaving blood smears.
Or someone can hear, like, the drip onto the floor.
Well, let's not go into Game of Thrones yet.
I wasn't just thinking of that, but I then suddenly thought, oh yeah, that does happen, but yeah.
So Ronnie says, best system I've ever used for backgrounds is Pendragon, with A Song of Ice and Fire a close second. Well, I've not actually played either, but I know you've mentioned Pendragon.
I tried making a character with Song of Ice and Fire one time, and that took forever, so we gave up. But yeah, I'm not surprised.
Was it a bit like GURPS? You needed a spreadsheet just to make your character?
Kind of. There was all like the house details and what your house did and what it could do.
I do remember going to a convention once and playing in this GURPS game, and the GM was such a huge GURPS advocate. Who was extolling the benefits of the system. He says, it's beautiful the way it works everything out for you and everything else. And I said, this character sheet's 20 pages, and it was a spreadsheet that had been printed out. And he had built over the years this complex spreadsheet that did all the maths for you, and it only took him a couple of hours to generate characters with it. And I'm, what is this? No.
Like, I see enough spreadsheets at work, thanks.
Yeah. But so yeah, I am quite happy to take huge penalties from the narrative, like mechanical penalties from the narrative, with my character flaws, you know, and to not do things, to fail to act in some situations because of a flaw in the character and let other players have that limelight. I'm trying to think of a specific example, and I've got a character in mind that I know I took myself off the front line several times with. This Dragonborn character, and she spoke like this because she had no teeth, you see.
I do remember you mentioning her.
Yes, it was a character with no teeth, and it's just a little role-playing character. I just say I talk like this because she's got no teeth, you see. And she'd speak to everyone like they were a child because she was very old, 78.
Was it? Did I play with you in that?
No.
Okay.
No.
Right.
So Ronnie says Super Priest started out well intentioned, but I did enjoy playing other aspects beyond his skills being so high. Yeah, but I think, you know, when it comes to flaws, the takeaway is like, don't be drizzed. That's the key, I think. I used to always, before D&D 5 came along and said you've got a flaw, an ideal, and a bond. And you know, I accept I wasn't as evolved as a role player going back, you know, 3-4 years ago and beyond into the when I started, which we won't mention the year. I always used to have a flaw. I'd always come up with a flaw, and that would kind of just be something I would do. You know, I had a doctor once that was obsessed with genetic engineering and had a 3-buttocked monkey that he loved to pieces, and would always have
that's
this.
from South Park.
I did it without it ever being on South Park. Like before, I did this.
You did before South Park?
I may have to mention the year, but no, it would have been. I would have been probably 18.
I'm sure it's South Park where he does all these modified genetics on monkeys and
It was
chickens
the
and whatever,
last
and they all have
millennium.
like 3 arses.
Let's not go into detail. It was the last millennium. I did this character that had.
Wow.
Yeah. I didn't know it was on South Park.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
an old one. It's this old. It's the guy with the hat up in the creepy mansion.
Okay. Sure.
He's an old character. He's not very recurring anymore.
Didn't know that South Park had copied me on that one. But
Yeah.
no, I mean, it was far from my best character ever by a long way. But you know, it was a flaw, and I'd always think of something like that to bring to every character. And actually, sometimes the oddest things are the best. But do avoid being mute. That is definitely one you never want to go for. So Ronnie says, GURPS was the gamer's system. I've never seen a system as bad for min-maxing players. Yeah. It is a problem with GURPS being that there's just so much weight to it that if you do build a spreadsheet to help you generate characters, you can really take the extremes with the min-max. But that's true of any system that's had a lot of modules released for it.
Yeah.
I think there was quite a good rule that came out of some of the old Pathfinder players, because Pathfinder 1, before the new edition, did suffer a bit from this, where because it had so many modules have been released over the years, you know, and expansions and stuff, if you took a bit from that book and a bit from that book and a bit from that and a bit from that, you could make these amazingly broken characters. And so what a lot of Pathfinder players started doing was saying core book +1. Like, it didn't matter which book you used, but you couldn't use multiple books, because that's when you could break things, because different books aren't
Actually, I
necessarily
have
designed.
heard that before, yeah.
Which I thought was a good way of doing it. 5th edition hasn't quite got that many things for
No,
adding
but
stuff.
even so, there is that cobalt.
The kobold?
Yeah.
What about a kobold?
Like the absolutely broken kobold character. It has a name.
I am not aware of this.
Let me see.
Because like when you think about what 5th edition's added in terms of playable, it's mostly been races, because you've got Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide, which didn't really add anything worthwhile. The Player's Companion, which is reasonably good, although it does have the GM's worst enemy in here. There they are, the Aarakocra. Never give your players flight.
No.
Bitter experience has taught me that. And somebody no doubt will disagree, because I know people often do when I say that. And I can't get that back in right now. But as a GM, I hate giving my players flight. You think about the other stuff that, I mean, they've added races, you know, was it Volo's Guide, or was it Xanathar's that added monster
I don't
races, can't remember. But anyway, we're kind of...
Pun, that was it.
I've not heard of Pun.
Pun, yeah. No. Keep talking, I'm finding it.
Okay. Well, I've got a question from Scott Poe, which is, are either of you running anything online soon? Well, Jason's just finished running a Cthulhu game over...
What? We've been running things for ages.
Jason has just finished running a Cthulhu game over on POG2. So we have a second channel to put our live plays on. You can find the link for that on our channel page on YouTube. Or just search Pair of Geeks II, with Pair of Geeks 2. Next Monday is Games Expo, so the Monday, or recovery from Games Expo. I don't know if we might do a session 0, we might not. It just depends on state of health.
What about this Monday?
Oh yes, of course.
We're doing this Monday.
Oh, but aren't we doing board games this Monday? You wanted to do board games. You made me organise things.
True, yes.
We'll worry about that later. Soon.
Phil's just going, what?
I forgot. I don't know if we've had confirmation anyway. So, soon, Phil will be running us a game on POG2 as well. So, we'll both be players, which is not often we get to play together. Oh, be so romantic. I don't know if we've mentioned this, but we're getting married. So that's coming up, and then after that I shall be running something, and I've half a mind to do, I was going to run After Forever After, but I've half a mind to do another corporation game.
Oh god.
Because I've sort of been planning something.
Yes, but babe.
What?
It went so crazy last time.
Is that a problem?
It was just up there all the time.
Are you saying you didn't like my corporation game?
There were some bits of it I think that could have been better.
Moving on.
Pun is a theoretical exercise designed to break 3.5 D&D. There are different versions, but most involve being a dragon-wrought kobold, summoning Pazuzu, and abusing alternate forms to give yourself arbitrarily high stats.
Okay. I know nothing about Pun.
It is a
Bill
kobold
says
that
it's
is like immortal or something.
Character generation is Monday, so if we are having board games, they're going to have to go for the evening.
Right.
Ronnie says there's not enough of anything left for us to destroy for another corporation. So another player doesn't want to do corporation. Oh, but corporation would be fun again. I only had a couple of week sessions. It's not like every session you run's perfect.
Moving on.
This is. I don't know if you know this, but we recently split up. I'm joking. Oops. Right.
What is next?
Well, you wanted to talk about character building flaws, so I wondered what you wanted to bring to this conversation.
I brought things to the conversation.
No, in terms of what specifically like, are we looking for flaws people can use? Like, is it suggestions? And
Well, you talked a bit about things like mannerisms and tics, which are very minor things. You could have more major things like maybe you killed somebody and you've got that to kind of live with, and okay, why did you kill them? Was it because of who they were, like as a race maybe, or something like that?
this brings us into the concept of backstory.
Yes.
Now, I have a thought here that I think is really important. Because I do think every character should have some kind of backstory, and it shouldn't be generatable with the edgelord generator. But the thing is, one really important rule with backstories that I think a large number of people overlook, is the backstory should not be more exciting than the adventure you're about to have. Right? The adventure you're about to have should be the most important adventure of the character's life. If you create this wild, amazing, fantastical backstory, then why aren't we telling that story?
Yes.
But you were saying.
Those things. So yeah, you've got like minor flaws, you can have major flaws. A lot of the time people come up with a flaw like, oh yeah, I get drunk easily.
Oh God, the amount of characters that are alcoholics. Is this a thing? Is it like I'm an adventurer, so I've turned to alcohol?
It's like, well, okay, you're an adventurer, so you're going to be staying in a lot of taverns. You probably drink a bit to keep warm. I mean, that's fairly normal in fantasy stuff, at least.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those things that's too easy to go to. It's like having the dead parents, or that whole very generic backstory. It's like, oh, my parents are dead and now I must avenge them. It's that edgelord generator. I'm going to bring it up on screen again before I read. Hello, Andrew. I'll read this thing.
Hello, Andrew.
The edgelord backstory table. If your backstory can be generated with that, or you're an alcoholic,
do a different one.
Yeah, change it up, and don't make your backstory better than the adventure you're about to play. And I quite like having ordinary characters rather than heroes.
Yes.
And I like, I think an important part of character generation is working with your GM to understand what your character arcs are going to be. Like, are you on a redemption arc? Are you on, a hero's journey? Are you the naive Harry Potter-esque type thing?
Or are you involved with a mission from elsewhere and you try to complete it whilst this adventure is going on? Are you hiding something? Have you got lycanthropy or something?
Yeah. So I think that this is really the meat of what the session 0 should be about.
Yes.
For me. It's let's work out your backstory. It's not about getting the character stats down and skills. It's about working out who this character is in the story and, to some extent, where they're going to go on their personal journey, on their character journey, or the hero's journey.
Here's a question for you. What would you say are some flaws of Helen? Helen Monroe.
Ah, the character I just played.
Indeed.
Flaws. That's it. Interesting. Helen was a character in my mind that I had this kind of nebulous idea of, and I kind of. She was a shopkeeper. That's not a flaw. I appreciate.
No.
She was a shopkeeper. She had obsessions. I don't know if that necessarily. I don't know. Was she really obsessed? I mean, there were the things that were important in her life were a car, Bertie, her cat, Mr. Money'sworth,
yes,
which hopefully came through less so towards the very end, and obviously her shop, because that was
her shop, but also that club, the club. What was it called? The women's thing.
The decoupage.
The decoupage.
I did mention that, didn't I?
No, you didn't.
No, I meant to. So yeah, I mean, were they flaws or was that just personality?
No, but certainly the flaws I picked up on was that you kind of get this in Cthulhu a little bit anyway, but with Helen in particular, you were kind of sheltered. Whereas, say, for example, Kyle and Dominic had maybe seen more, so they reacted differently. You had a little bit of that sort of naivety and innocence in there. So sometimes you just go charging in, not even thinking, oh, there could be something there. It's like, no, I'm an American, I'm going to go in there, no. And then other times you kind of, like, gloss over something, maybe. Whereas the others are, like, freaking out. You're just like, you don't see it in the way they do. You focus on something else, like, oh, my cardigan.
Well, I think that at any given moment I try to play what's important to the character. And I think if your character is too much of an adventurer, then it doesn't really have a character. Because at that point you're starting to play the tactical game. The last thing I ever want to do in D&D is listen at a door before I peer through the keyhole and open it, even if I'm in a dungeon, because that doesn't feel normal. That is a saber team moving, through and covering arcs of fire and rescuing Iranian hostages. Thinking of the SAS saber team thing, the embassy siege. But Andrew Kaufman asks a question: any advice, since you are both going to play in a game, on how to RP some of the typical flaws? Firstly, remove the word typical. Be unique if you can. I mean, there's nothing wrong with taking something like alcoholism and role playing it, but
it's been done so many times.
But you have to bear in mind, we are old hands. We've played a lot of games. Not everyone has.
Well, I haven't compared to you. You played a lot more than me.
Don't do alcoholism.
It's something easy to do because, again, you stay in a lot of taverns. It's easy to access alcohol. Maybe think more like it's kind of like a comedy thing, and sometimes other flaws are a comedy thing.
The thing, like culturally, certainly in the UK, and I believe it's true in America, there's this attitude towards alcohol that's like, oh yeah, I got brainlessly drunk last night, and then when people are role-playing drunks, they tend to do it in that vein, as opposed to dealing with the much darker side of alcoholism and addiction.
Yeah, definitely. But even in terms of other flaws, they're quite often presented in a bit of a comical value.
For me, if I've got a character with an addiction, and that character isn't satiating that addiction, I would rather have penalties and deal with withdrawal than get the most out of the situation.
A good example is a white vampire, a white clan vampire. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but anyway, in Dresden Files, there are different types of vampires, but we all had to either drink blood or do something of that vein. I believe with me, I kind of sucked emotion or something. But that was a flaw in that I needed to do that every so often, or else I would feel withdrawn.
Well, that's just standard vampire, though, isn't it?
But that's a flaw. It's like a very big example of one. But as you say, with the addiction, it's like if you don't get the addiction, or like even what's his name, Ethan in the game Heavy Rain. He was a police officer, and he did like investigations and all that cool stuff, but he had to take drugs, and there are times when you have to choose.
I mean, that's a good
do
way
I take it, or do I try and hold it off and leave it, and then it might get worse?
I think it's a good way to really understand addiction if you need to, is, do a load of cocaine, then you can roleplay addiction better.
Well, I wasn't thinking of that.
Don't do that.
Do cocaine or crystal meth to try and method act. Don't method act. But if you're addicted, for example, then yes, you've got to think about like, okay, where am I going to get my next fix?
It can be physically painful to deal with addiction. You can be rolling around on the floor with chronic stomach cramps, and it's not just the mental, it can also be physical. Your body temperature is different. You could be sweating, you could go through cold shivers.
But that's kind of after quite a long time of not having it. But say
not necessarily.
Okay, well, I suppose it depends how powerful it is. But say, for example, you've not had just for a little while, and you're kind of nearly ready to have it. You might get irritable. You might start snapping. You might take things the wrong way.
And certainly the ability to think clearly goes. And
Different.
that I was thinking about this earlier today because when we were at the blood test centre earlier, I had news articles on about migraines and the morning telly thing. And I had migraines many years ago, and one of the things they didn't cover as a symptom that I experienced was when a migraine began, I have a terrible sense of judgment. My work is very mental. I'll do stupid things. I might think, oh, I should go home, and I'll drive home because I've made the decision to drive. It wouldn't matter if I didn't have a license. I might still make that decision. I might have impaired vision and think, yeah, I'll go home because the vision will get worse, and the logic doesn't work. It breaks down. But we're talking a lot about addiction.
Well, that is
and
a
really,
potential flaw.
yeah. So we're covering that particular topic, but I think it's important, really, when role-playing flaws, to answer Andrew's question, that when you're role-playing a character, is really trying to understand the world from what that character's worldview would be. For me, it is a certain amount of method acting to an extent.
Yeah. And is it a flaw that stays static, so I know, like a speech impediment, or is it something that can fluctuate, get worse, get a bit better again, calm down, that kind of thing?
I like characters to go through a journey during the course of a campaign, like a hero's journey type thing. So I like flaws that characters might overcome by the end of the adventure.
Yeah.
So these days I try to play something that is, an emotional difference. Helen changed a lot over the course of the adventure. She started off the very first thing she thought about when the opening scene and the tornado hit the town. First thing she thought about was a shop and a cat, and getting back to them, making sure they're okay. And by the end, she was prepared. She'd gone on a journey, and by the end of that adventure, she was prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice to save the world.
That is true, actually.
And that is not something she could have done at the start of that adventure. And I think if you're looking at the game through the eyes of the character, then the worldview of that character, for me, that helps a lot. So I like to try to understand what is, how does this character look at the world? And an important part of that is understanding the life they've had. They're more than just the charlatan background. What does that really mean for that character? If you took charlatan, for example, as a background.
Well, you could say you're arrogant or something as the flaw.
Oh, maybe that is your flaw. But what created that arrogance? Why is that character arrogant?
Because,
take, for example, Dragon Ball.
You're missing one fundamental thing. The character does not see their flaw as a flaw.
Quite often.
Especially something like arrogance, you don't feel like you're being arrogant, you just think that's how I should be. It's confidence, it's...
Talking of the big one we've talked about a lot tonight is alcoholism. How many people actually accept that they're alcoholics? Most people are just drunks.
Exactly.
Because drunks don't accept they've got a problem. Alcoholics, go get treatment. So, huge difference.
You were saying, Dragonborn.
Dragonborn, interesting one, right? So, I learnt a little bit about Dragonborn in the world of the Sword Coast recently, and how they come from a different planet in an alternate dimension and all this kind of stuff. But as I was learning about just some D&D lore, Dragonborn are a notoriously arrogant race. And what causes that is the desire to be really good at everything they do. Like, when they do something, they want to be the best at doing that thing. And they're also, very honour bound, and their word is their bond. And I think we sometimes don't think about what that really means. Like, if a character is bound to their work, for example, like that's a trait they've got, and let's say you ask me to do something for you, like you're on your deathbed and I'm kneeling down with you, and you ask me to go, kill the baddie, make sure they die, and if I'm not sure I can win that encounter, I might say no. If I was a Dragonborn, I might say no. Just, instead of giving you the comfort in your dying moments, I'm just going to say no. I'm not promising that because I'm not sure I can do it. But if I commit to it, I will be the best person at killing that thing because I'm a Dragonborn and that's what I do. And it's kind of like an almost childish mentality. And I thought that was interesting.
There was a good example that somebody I know played for a wizard, because of course wizards are extremely intelligent. They learn everything from books. His flaw was completely missing the obvious. So he was seeing all the details and blah blah, but the obvious, the elephant in the room, no, never saw it because his mind did not work like that.
One of my favourites of a time when I think I personally, I hope I roleplayed it quite well, and the reason I'm being quite disclaimery is because it's a game you ran. But I played a woman in white. It was a fake game,
yes.
And she had an aspect. It wasn't necessarily a flaw, but it was an interesting one. That was I cannot take a life without monologuing first.
Yes.
So if she went to kill someone, she had to monologue, which is a bit of a flaw. It's definitely
very specific.
I don't know. It was fate. It was the first time I played it, but
no, it was good. But just a comment that it is specific flaw. It's not just like, oh, I must talk too much or something. No, you have to monologue at this specific point.
And I did do a monologue that I thought was particularly epic.
Yes.
But I actually, here's the thing. I think all main villains should have that flaw.
Well, I thought they did.
Well, they do and they don't. I think it's something like to be mindful of as a GM, that you really kind of want that monologuing in. I think, and that because like sometimes you might pick a villain that can't actually speak, and I think the moment you do that, you've got that villain. But anyway, moving on. Next question, if there is one. Scott Poe says, don't make your backstory resolve.
Absolutely not.
That's a really good point.
Yeah. The way I like to do it is by the time the backstory ends, the adventure starts.
I think Scott's point is that your backstory shouldn't end. It should end in the game, as it were.
Yeah, but what I mean is in terms of where the story gets up to. So, okay, story... backstory, and then it goes into the actual adventure.
Your backstory leads into the adventure.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's a good way of achieving that particular effect.
Or it might be a case of you kind of round the backstory, but there are definitely still things unresolved. You then start the adventure, and then maybe something comes up that is to do with it being unresolved.
I think the default position for a lot of players is that like backstory's got one or two interesting things that might define some things about the character, and it's kind of something the GM might pull into, like this bag of things they might draw from.
Yeah, like one session they might go, oh, let's do so and so's backstory.
Yeah, and in a way,
me no likey.
It's almost a bit too formula, isn't it? And you kind of.
I really don't like that.
I like, if I can, and
fluid.
If the GM's willing, I like to build the backstory that kind of works with the plot that's coming.
Yeah.
But the problem is, of course, that the players give that input without knowing the plot that's coming, and then indeed they shouldn't know too much about what's coming. And of course, the other problem is if you have a player that comes up with a more creative or a particularly good backstory, you're always in danger of the game being too much about them and not enough about the other characters. So it's important that the backstory is balanced. I made this mistake, I think, with Christoph. I think the backstory was kind of too cool.
Yeah. And I did the same with Yuto, in that my backstory was really exciting, and then the DM put in a load of stuff to do with my background, and I really enjoyed it, but then there were other people who'd not done much background at all, so they kind of got sort of backseat for a bit.
Yeah, so it's very much a thing I think for GMs to be mindful of, that if you've got a player whose backstory is one you want to delve into because it's really cool, you need to work with your players so that you can delve into other players' backstories as well. And yes, take Scott Poe's advice, don't make your backstory.
I mean,
yourself.
you could just do the whole thing of saying, okay, well, there's PCA and PCB is the brother of another mother. So they're all, it was a joke, like they're all kind of interrelated and their backgrounds are all joined together.
All same family role playing.
No, it made sense in my head, but like all the backgrounds are actually joined together because the two of them are a brother of another mother. And
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm being slow. Ronnie says Helen Munro's flaw was that she thought she was law enforcement. I would say
I think it was more Dominic thought he was the only law enforcement.
I think it's more Dominic thought law enforcement was what counted in a Cthulhu situation, and was therefore surprised
which is a very
when
human thing to do.
Yeah, I think he was surprised when a shopkeeper had the audacity to show initiative at times and to want to resolve something that was clearly not within the grounds of law enforcement.
Yeah, I mean, you know, creepy crab stuff.
What happened to Mr. Money'sworth? Well, we did catch up the first time we went to Carcosa and came back. So, okay, so for those watching who don't know what we're talking about here, Helen was a shopkeeper who had a cat called Mr. Money'sworth. It was a Cthulhu adventure, and
Go watch it.
yeah, you can watch it on Pog2. After you sent us to the planet of Carcosa, the hell world of the Yellow King.
Planet is too physical, it's more a
dimension
realm
space
thing,
realm,
yes.
We did catch up with Mr. Money'sworth.
Yes, he did come and find you.
Yes, and I tried to incorporate him, I think, for a little bit after that, but then we ended up teleporting all over the place.
Yeah.
And by that point, I couldn't justify him being there.
I would say he did survive because every, second Tuesday, or every Tuesday or whatever, he'd go and get a load of food from decoupage, and then he'd start coming more often and more often, and they just keep on feeding him.
I think, well, don't forget, there's also, when we came back from Carcosa, there's somebody else. Oh, it was the other Helen, yes. No.
Spoiler alert!
Yes, spoiler alert, there's another Helen. I don't know. I think we lost him. Like, the point at which he was no longer with us was when we teleported to Indianapolis. No, Charlottesville.
Yes, Charlottesville.
And at that point, he wasn't with us. So, whatever happened to him, his destiny is an unresolved backstory.
I did play it in my mind to possibly kill him in quite a violent way, but I thought, no, I won't, because that would maybe traumatise you too much in real life.
Yeah. Okay, so Scott says, my advice for playing the floor, come up with a couple go-to behaviours. They won't come up as often as you like, so repetition works just fine. I mean, I think if a character's good, they don't necessarily need multiple flaws, they just need a good one, and one that informs the behaviour of the character.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you... all those ideas, you know, ideals, bonds, flaws and stuff that are on the D&D character, it's not just about flaws, maybe your flaw is really a bond.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I've seen enough characters now have brothers or sisters that are also in the party. That means that other character is your primary concern ahead of that of the party, which is why I kind of hate it, in the sense of it doesn't help the adventure get solved, because it should be for those characters more important that sibling should be more important than the rest of the adventurers. Now that's good in the sense of having a flaw, but at the same time you don't want to dominate the you don't, if you're in a 3-person group and 2 of you are siblings, one of you is going to die, right? Or ought to, and yeah. So Ronnie says, yeah, all of us went on quite the character arc in that Cthulhu game. Yeah, indeed. But let's get the next thing up. Nathan H. Good
Hello,
afternoon,
Nathan
evening,
H.
friends. Hello, Nathan. Nathan H. says, there is also the theme of undreamt prophecy. Ah, yes, we're going to talk about prophecies later.
Yes.
If you will, something the character never talks about because it seems so preposterous and stays safely within their own daydreaming time. The problem, okay, we'll talk about prophecies later, but the problem with character details that aren't necessarily out there, you know, don't necessarily get revealed, is they don't get revealed. You know,
no one else is going to know.
I remember once playing a forum game, so you know, old bulletin board style forum on the internet.
You keep banging your foot.
Sorry. And so this was a written game, very slow action in that kind of game. Yeah, essentially. And all the players in the game, bar one, were being very narrative and descriptive. But one of the players didn't feel that they, as a player, could write like that. So they said, this character keeps themselves to themselves and therefore doesn't explain what they're thinking. The thing is, I was explaining thought processes of the character because I was essentially treating it as writing a book. This is what the character's feeling and doing, and it actually enables you to role-play in a lot more depth than role-playing in person because of that.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
But the thing is, by saying that I'm a loner so I keep it to myself, doesn't mean the character isn't thinking.
No.
And so that what that person had done is they didn't bring out that character's, you know, why that character was a loner, which they could have done if they sort of narrated what they were thinking and why. And it in a written role playing game you can actually, you know, exposition that. And that's my problem really with these. Any character aspect that is kind of like it's a secret, therefore I won't mention it. Well, that secret, whilst it might inform some action, it's not going to make sense to anyone else at the table. So it's not a good flaw if it just means that you seemingly act random. It should, that whatever is driving that action and those decisions should get revealed to the rest of the group, even if it's not revealed initially. It should be part of the arc you plan with your GM. Okay, Nathan says, characters who daydream but take a while to reveal this. So we're doing more about daydreaming, okay. But take a while to reveal this are always fun. Helen Monroe seemed to fit this bill before the campaign began, and she busted out into her adventuring daydream self. I'm not sure I'm fully understanding the concept of the day. I think, you know, daydreaming could be a good flaw.
Yeah, but I think what Nathan's meaning is Helen kind of dreamt to be this kind of more adventurous person.
Who she aspired to be. Yeah. I wonder if she did, because like one of the backstory that I didn't use, because I came up with a number of things. Whenever you create a character, I always come up with a number of things that don't necessarily use everything.
Yeah.
But I had decided that she'd been married. She was widow to a Vietnam soldier who died in Vietnam, and you know, so she'd had this very kind of lonely existence, and maybe she did wish she was more than what she was in a kind of wistful way.
I think there was a bit of that, yeah. And then it came out, so this is what I mean, in that sometimes you did just sort of charge in there, almost like you become familiar with it and you preferred it.
In some respects, yes.
Well, like when you mowed all those children over.
Spoilers. Yeah, but I can't even remember what motivated that now.
Because that was the quickest way to get to the front.
Yeah, a little bit of Sheila McFeeler in that, I think.
Sheila McFeeler.
Okay, Nathan says, correct me if I'm wrong on my perception of Helen as being someone who ran a good shop but longed for adventure, yet never spoke it. I don't know if she really longed for adventure. I think she was used to doing things herself though, because the thing is, her husband had died a long time before the adventure, and she was used to managing herself. She was used to running a shop. She had staff that she was responsible for, and I think she did definitely nearer the start. She definitely felt responsible for Kyle, and you know she had that instinct. She took care of herself and she took care of others, but you know that was always part of her persona. I don't know if she really longed for adventure, but I think there was a point where she, about a third of the way through, where she thought, yeah, I could do law enforcement.
Yeah.
And Nathan says, I agree on the fact that the player has to be careful with how they handle this kind of undreamt prophecy / secret. Players who don't drop hints but want a big reveal can be boring as hell. Yeah, it's true. Whatever is driving your character's actions absolutely has to be something that becomes public in the act 1. If you're thinking 3-act structure, it's an act 1 thing.
Yes.
Because that's your setup. Yeah.
I'm a little bit cold. I'm going to get some socks on.
You did make me open the window, so you might want to close that.
I know. I thought we would close it.
Yes, Ronnie says Sheila McFeeler was a fun character. Nathan agrees, so I'm glad you watched that too. Sorry?
She had her flaws though.
Jason's saying that Sheila had her flaws as well. This point, while Jason's out the room, let's talk briefly about Podbean, because I wanted to raise something. Now, it turns out that to do any more with Podbean, the chat's gone off. I need to do that as well. To do any more with Podbean, I apparently have to pay money every month.
Well, we have to pay.
Yeah, I'll probably come out with Patreon or something. But so yes, money has to change hands for us to keep uploading to Podbean, which means we can do one of two things. We can either delete old episodes, which seems not the point of a podcast, or we can use a different service, maybe just put it on something more useful like iTunes. What I wanted to know, there's the window being shut. What I wanted to know from those of you who have actually used this show as a podcast, what do you make of Podbean? Is it any good? Should we set it up with something else? Is there a better service? Because I've been using the Podbean app and it's
shite.
Great.
It takes up so much memory. It's really clunky. I don't like Podbean.
I don't like the interface.
No.
And in terms of the website,
we don't want to hear this. Put my socks on. I'm so sorry.
In terms of the website that Podbean gives you, it's 2019 and that website is not responsive. So if you are a Podbean viewer or listener even, let us know. Let us know what you think of it. Should we use something else? Because if we're going to pay money out, it needs to be worth that money.
Yes.
And my feeling at the moment is I should just create something else. The problem is I won't have time to do that for quite a while. But the Podbean wanting money thing is a kind of a now thing, so we need to figure out what we're going to do. So yeah, I just wanted to raise that topic. So if anyone tuning in has been listening to us on Podbean, let us know. Doesn't help that of course Podbean can't handle live, so there's no interaction there. So let's move on to the next thing. We do while we're having a little kind of sabbatical. We've had some more prizes delivered for Compass. And we've got them to show you. So, so for those of you who don't know, Complus is a charity convention. Complus 2 is happening this year. It's basically a telethon held on this YouTube channel, or if you're watching it on Podbean, held on our YouTube channel, where for 24 hours we entertain you and give away loads of prizes. Now at the same time, there is a 3-day online RPG convention that you can take part in games and stuff, and we'll talk a little bit about that shortly.
Later.
The point is, for 24 hours, Jayson and I broadcast, with our friend Lloyd, broadcast on YouTube, non-stop, giving away prizes from role-playing game industry people. They give us stuff to give away to you, and we try and get you to donate to charity. So let's have a look at some of these prizes. So this first thing, is that the David Cartwright?
A trilogy, yes. A trilogy of books by David Cartwright, and it is Camelot 2050.
What I really love about this is that it's kind of like a sci-fi take on the most fantastic folklore in the world. See, Wales has the best folklore of any country. For a start, there's more than one dragon.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, we've got the whole trilogy here. They're all signed.
They
Those
are
books.
indeed. I'm just showing the covers off.
So what he's done is he's taken the fantastic folklore of Wales and turned it, it's the Arthurian legends that he's really done. Now, it's not often. I think a lot of British people tend to think of the Arthurian legends as English.
Yeah, they're really not.
No, it's based on Welsh folklore. He's taken that and sci-fi'd it, and it's really awesome.
I haven't seen these ones yet.
You have not. So
No.
these arrived today. We need to thank them actually.
Yes.
So this is from Wisdom Save Media.
And the great thing about Wisdom Save Media is they do books, but they also do accessories. And I'm always excited about companies that do accessories because, yeah, you can have loads of books and all that, but you've got to then have nice dice. You've got to have nice stuff to keep them in. You've got, your miniatures to think about and all that. So, oh my goodness me. Ooh! This is all like completely a reaction, by the way, because again, I've not seen these. We've got some lovely leather dice bags, and I don't know if you can see, but it's got Wisdom Save Media engraved, like embossed on them.
Oh, that is actually
And
nicely done.
oh, you haven't got any dice to go with them? Never mind, because they provide them anyway. I mean, how awesome is that?
Oh, they're clear dice as well.
They are clear, yeah, so
transparent type, so
we've got
that's
yellow.
better quality.
These ones are opaque.
Oh, that's opaque orange. We've got transparent blue.
We've got transparent yellow.
Oh, this is the transparent yellow, or it's there's two sets of transparent yellow.
Yep.
Another
orange, is it?
Opaque orange.
Yes.
That's a nice bright orange actually. I like that.
Yeah, I like it. It's almost got a
Okay.
slight sort of peach look to it.
We really struggled to give away dice last year, didn't we?
This is what I mean. It's like accessories.
We did give away those amazing metal dice though from Kakapopo TCG,
We did, yes.
which we're hoping to have back this year.
Yes.
So a lot of bookmarks. Now, we're definitely not going to give these bookmarks out as individual prizes. We'll throw them in with other stuff, but these are really cool because they've got a load of D&D 5th help things on them. So it's a bookmark that's just got useful stuff.
Firstly, it's a ruler for feet.
Yeah, so you've got
On
your
the side.
movement.
You've got you what you can do in combat. You've got your currency, death saves.
Oh, it's player tips one side, DM tips the other.
Ah, awesome.
So
you
DM
could,
tips
you could
is-
hold it like this for the whole game and get really sore hands.
So it's got your XP breaks, it's got so that's so handy having the exhaustion levels because I love using exhaustion damage.
You do, don't you?
AC modifiers for cover,
Short rest.
difficulty
long rest.
thresholds for DC checks. Really handy on the
Very
GM
nice.
side. That is, in many ways, more useful than the GM screen. That's
Yeah.
not all. So we're going to just
No.
scatter those in amongst other prizes with the bookmarks.
Yes, absolutely.
But
Next, by the way, there are some PDF prizes, but these are the sort of the physical ones. Next, we have got how many? 5. Wisdom Save Media Pocket Companion, a Tavern Guide, which is very which is very exciting because I love any kind of accessory supplement to do with taverns. So basically, it will set you on a path to adventure and glory, providing you with the tools necessary to begin your epic tale. Whether you wish to use this book in a pinch or as a resource to help you write your own adventures, it has been designed to navigate with ease and grab the essential information you need quickly.
Babe, you know last week I said I wanted to do a tavern called The Long Rest?
Yeah, it's in there. So, yeah, you can't now. It's in there since the
Been
book.
done.
It's been done.
It's so this it's got some examples of pubs. It's got
what I like about it, they're all pubs.
style.
They're all pubs. But what I like about them is they're not just city taverns. They're village, in the wilderness, on the road.
Lot books.
You also have drinks and distractions. Create your own beers, wines, and spirits. So you've got various tables here where you can roll for. Okay, you've got some peasants and. Oh no, beg your pardon. It's called the name of the liquor. So like, peasant's courage or thieves' cask or something like that. So there's that nice random thing. There's also a tavern distraction, so someone yells, "Drinks are on me," or "You're out of beer," or "You're unwelcome." Although there's a shady looking character in here as well.
Cellars and secrets.
But also how it tastes. Tavern games. Unique features, so for example, multiple areas for gambling, fighting pits in the centre. You can do your homebrew, so it's even got like blank bits there where you can write your own in.
Tavern generator.
Yeah, that's what I was getting to. Which is all
Okay,
really,
give me a
really
D6.
Cool. 2.
Alright, it's the noun and nouns. Give me a D12
11.
and another.
4.
The warrior and the wolf.
Cool. So yes, I like those. As somebody who's had experience working in the catering industry, I kind of do this myself anyway. I think, okay, what does the actual beer and wine taste like? Why does it taste that way? Do they get something in specially? Have they got like a really fancy drink they save for special occasions? Do they have a really shitty grog? Who owns it? You know, how long have they owned it for? What kind of history is there? All that stuff.
Oh my god.
Whoa.
I didn't know there was more.
Yeah, there's more. But
I haven't seen this at all.
yes, but obviously, you know, a book with all that in there is also amazing. And again, I love.
It does look
tavern
really good.
stuff. So next, we've got a few things. So just bear with because this is all quite thin. Tavern rules. They're posters. Okay, we have 3 of these.
Tavern rules. Beverages sold by the size of the drink, not by the size of the drinker. The barkeep is always right. Healers drink free. Additional furniture can be provided in the event of a brawl. Dwarf tossing is not permitted inside. Wasting ale is strictly prohibited. Disclaimer: any adventurers that undertake quests from this tavern do so at their own risk. The establishment takes no responsibility for any party deaths, crippling injuries, loss of earnings, or world-ending summonings that occur as a result. That's awesome.
And finally, we have some artwork.
Ooh.
Which is the same as in the books, except they are sort of larger. I don't know if they're original, if they've been printed. They might be original, actually. Where they've drawn...
They're
drawn
laminated, so... Oh no, they're on a thing.
Big studio for Wisdom Save Media, and they're numbered out of 100, so there's not many of these at all.
These are limited edition prints, then.
So we've got the city, we've got on the road, we've got the wilderness, we've got the... we've got that one there. And we've also got this one.
It doesn't look kind of don't want to open it.
No, don't.
Yeah.
No. Away. But yes, Wisdom Save Media. They were a very pleasant surprise at Dragon Meet. I was very impressed with their stuff, and these could all be yours. Or all of these could be yours, even.
When he says these books look lovely, and he likes the bookmarks. Phil says he's looking forward to Complus 2. Damn straight, could be that. Because, you know, if I'm going to talk for 24 hours, I want my audience, guys, I need you.
Yes.
I need you to get through it. That's not the only thing that's come this week. As Jayson continues to rustle through a lot of packaging material, we've also had a delivery from Cubicle 7.
Cubicle 7.
Who also included a couple of bookmarks.
I was going to make a joke that they were really heavy, but never mind.
Ronnie says, I nearly finished my generic horror game for the prize bundle. Got to do a generic fantasy and generic sci-fi as well. Of course, there is a freebie giveaway bundle that we give away each year to people who are on the mailing list for Complus 2. So
go to the mailing list.
If you sign up on the mailing list online, which is complus.live, you can sign up on the mailing list, and we don't email often. Every time we do, we lose subscribers.
We do more frequently, of course, while when the con's coming up. But at the moment, no.
Yeah.
But if you're on the mailing list, you will get a free bundle of awesome things written specifically for the con.
And it's a great way of staying in touch with what's when the con is and not missing out. It's October 11th to 13th, by the way.
I'm just seeing this.
Do they know what we've not shown them?
No, but I'm just seeing
this one's signed.
That one's signed. Okay. So first thing, I'm assuming are we giving those two away together?
I think they're a pair.
Yep. So, for those of you who like Adventures in Middle Earth,
One where you hold the other.
yes,
Okay.
we are giving away the Player's Guide, and what's that one?
The Lawmaster's Guide. Everything you need to play Adventures in Middle Earth.
So basically, if you like Lord of the Rings and you like 5th edition, and you think, ooh, wouldn't it be nice if there was a system where that could work?
It's a really cool map of Lake Town.
Then this is it. We've also got it's not Middle Earth, it's the Wilderland in this one. All beautiful in amazing pictures and so on.
There's bound to be a Middle Earth map in here somewhere.
Well, yes, of course. And then there's actual hex maps as well.
I haven't looked at this yet.
Apologies that I'm blinking a lot, but my lens has gone really skewy.
Ooh, stat blocks look very 5th edition.
Well, yes, it is 5th edition, babe.
Oh.
That's what I'm saying. This is specifically 5th edition, but Lord of the Rings.
Oh, I see.
Have you never heard of Adventures in Middle Earth? Because I also have the One Ring RPG, which is also Cubicle 7.
I thought this was an update of that.
Which is on there. But then Cubicle 7 also decided to do a 5e version.
Wow.
Are you suddenly really wanting to play this or something?
We're not giving this away. No, we do, of course.
But also, Cubicle 7 have been working a lot on this, and finally it's been released. We're giving away a signed copy of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4th edition.
The game we really wanted to give away last year because it came out just before the con.
And
we couldn't send it to us in time. Well, no, hi James, welcome back.
Hello James. No, I think what happened was they released maybe the PDF, but they hadn't quite done the hardback or something. It was sort of in that kind of.
It just couldn't happen last year, but this year we get to give it away, and it's a signed copy. So all of those wonderful prizes will be available to you at Complus 2.
Yeah, but obviously we've
stuff we've already shown you.
Yes, we've obviously got a lot of other stuff as well that's all downstairs.
Yeah, our bottom of our stairway is
becoming a fire hazard.
It's a warehouse now. That's what it is.
So those don't excite you, nothing will.
While we're talking about conventions though, I think it's time we started talking about our second topic, which is where... Careful! It's one you wanted to raise.
Well, yeah, because there's a reason why we're not broadcasting on Friday.
Shall I leave you with the camera for a few minutes?
Oh, are you wanting an abstinent?
Well, I thought I'd get some water.
Oh yes, be good, thank you.
And yeah.
Okay.
So you get this topic all to yourself to start with, and then I'll come and barge in.
Yes, alright. Good. So yes, for those of you who don't know, we are off to the UK Games Expo next year, which is something that we do every year. We even met at the UK Games Expo, which is not cheesy at all, but there we go. And we normally go as press, so that way we can interview the people who give us these amazing books, as well as other people. We also go round, we produce a video for POG and like do a showcase of people's things. So we usually shove the camera in their face and go, "Hi, what do you do? What have you made?" And they're more than happy to explain. We also are going to the Thursday show, which again allows us to sort of sneak peek things in the trade hall before it opens to the public. And we always do a few games, normally RPGs, maybe a couple of board games with people, like informal board games if we have time. This year I am running the Cthulhu Masters, so if any of you happen to be going and like Cthulhu and have not got a ticket to the Cthulhu Masters, I highly recommend it. It is a tournament run by Chaosium, which is basically a role-playing tournament. So you play in the first round, and everyone does the same scenario on different tables. And then whoever is voted to go to the next round because they are the best role player, then they go to the final, and then you obviously play the final. It's a different scenario, different characters. So there's quite a lot of sort of jumping in to character. You don't get that long to, look at it and stuff. You don't know who you're playing. Although you kind of don't know who you're playing anyway with convention games, but in this it's kind of paramount that you get into it. Once you do the final, if you win that, then you get a prize, you get an awesome trophy, you get to call yourself the role-playing champion, or actually that might just be Becky who does that. I've not heard of anybody else do it, but anyway, so that's going on. It's always good fun. And probably the other great thing about the expo is that with all the people on YouTube and online in the YouTube community, we all come together, and it's kind of weird seeing them in real life because it's like, oh, you actually exist in real life and I can touch you and other weird things. But also we get to actually talk about stuff together and have a few drinks, and just it's a load of fun. So even if you're not that serious about like coming in like 3 days or something, you can get tickets for one day if you rather just sort of come and try it out. But if you're into role playing and you live in the UK, you've gotta come to the expo. Like, I mean, I when was the first time I went? Like 2013, I think, 2014, and I just went for like a few hours, and it was so annoying because like I wish I could stay here longer, and then I did stay longer, and I'm like, that was so worth it. Like, it's nice to try it out, but doing the 3 days, actually staying nearby, is like the experience.
Totally.
Great food as well. Lots of great drinks, but yeah.
So, were you talking about Games Expo the whole time?
Yes, because I love it.
Okay.
But we haven't got into like actually role-playing
Running a game.
or running a convention yet.
Okay.
That I was waiting for you to come back.
Oh, you're so sweet. Now, running a game at a convention. You did a video on this.
I did.
For Pair of Geeks.
Yes.
Back in the day. Yeah, I don't think it was long after we started going out.
No.
You might have even had long hair.
Whoa, no, out of my memory.
Sorry.
But anyway, yes, Phil B. First time at the expo, and I've convinced him to do the Masters.
Okay, so for those who don't know, what is the Masters?
I've already explained what the Masters is.
You have? Have you explained that I won it?
In passing.
And then got into the final the next year too.
Didn't mention that bit.
Because, quality is
But you are a great
consistently
role player.
good.
But anyway, yeah, role playing and
Just my corporation name suck, yeah?
Running games at a convention and also playing is obviously going to be quite different from your local group that you have every week.
Let's talk about running first.
Yes.
What's different about running a game at a convention?
There's a lot, actually. One of the most obvious things is the amount of time you have.
Mm-hmm.
Quite often when people get together in their local group, it's for an evening or it's for a day. It might even be for a weekend. But in this, there are very regimented slots.
I think there isn't anybody in the world that would roleplay for an entire weekend except our group.
Yeah,
I don't think
that's
there's
why I brought it
many
up.
people.
But I've definitely done other groups where we've kind of roleplay for the whole day. Because it's the thing, you sort of take your time, you take lots of breaks, you kind of want to explore something for ages, but you do not have time in a convention to do that. The other thing as well is, of course, because it's a convention, it's going to be a one-shot. Whereas obviously if you're going with your group, it might be a bit of a campaign, it might be a story arc of some kind that's leading in from the last one.
First thing to note, I think, is that quite a lot of convention GMs actually run the same games.
They
So
do.
They'll run a game and then they'll run the same one but with different players at the next convention. And they'll evolve their games slowly over time. Quite often the GM will run, 3 or 4, sometimes 5 events, games at a single event, and they'll evolve their game slowly over time.
Whereas I am way too ambitious for that.
I like to generate fresh adventures every time.
Same.
Because I want to be entertained as a GM and I want to tell different stories. There's so many stories in me just bursting to get out.
Yes.
But of course, because it's a convention game, you've not got time to generate characters, and one of the biggest burdens and overheads is all the character gem. Yeah,
because as you said, there's no time, but also I don't personally think it's fair on players who've paid normally, at least to get in, or in the case of the expo, you pay to be in that RPG as well, to then have to do character sheets. I mean, that's part of the scenario. It should be done for you.
I've only once had people generate characters for a game at a convention, and it was because the convention organisers asked me to run something because they were short on GMs for the last slot, so I didn't have time to prepare. I just happened to mention that I was willing to if it was needed. So I chose first edition because of course it's really quick to gen characters, so we could get into the game sooner. Some players still manage to take a long time though. It's a nightmare doing that stuff at a convention because you're so pushed on time. I thought if I do first edition, we'll get characters done in 5 minutes. It still took about 40 minutes because some people wanted to digest everything, and
absolutely.
And it's you haven't got that time to spare. However, because as a GM you've got 6 characters to generate usually, and that can be very time consuming, I cheat and I don't follow the rules. I just put numbers in.
Yeah, fair point. Also, in terms of timing, 6 players in 4 hours, that especially if they like role playing, there's going to be a lot of fighting for the limelight, which you as a GM have to regulate. But also, your scenarios cannot be these big, complicated, multi-layered scenarios. Even with something like Cthulhu, where yes, there's a mystery and you slowly work it out, you still only have 4 hours in which to work it out. So even with that, you don't want to make it too complicated.
I actually generally run about a 2.5 hour game at a convention.
Yes.
For that reason, because something will always take longer. So what I do is I come up with an adventure that's about 2.5 hours worth of adventure, but I'll put in some optional extra encounters. Maybe they're just reinforcing points the players already know. Maybe it's just a random fight, just something that I can drop in if I need it to fill time if the players are too quick. But I aim to run the adventure to finish sooner rather than later, and usually my convention games will be a little over 3 hours and I'll finish early. I don't finish late on a convention game, never do. I actually think it was really rude to finish a minute beyond the finish time because players need to be somewhere else. They've got a schedule they're keeping, so if you overrun, you are messing up the next group that each of those 6 players that you've got are going on possibly to 6 different games.
Not only that, you're messing it up for the players who intend to come in and use your table.
Yeah, so you are impacting 44 players' games and 7 GMs by being late. So I always plan a shorter adventure and then put optional stuff I can drop.
Yeah. With Cthulhu it is a challenge. Apparently this Masters game is supposedly very close to the 4-hour mark. So we'll see.
Well, that's a little concerning because the thing is, where that slot is in the afternoon, we then got to get dinner, which means queues and everything else, and then get back.
I'm aware of that. I'm aware of that, and I know how tight it was last year, so I will definitely keep that in mind. And I've got ideas, I've got plans. So if you have written something which you know is a 4-hour scenario, maybe leave some encounters optional. Maybe if you can see after a few minutes the players aren't really sure or they're dilly-dallying, then steer them back on course. You can do that in this kind of one shot, and actually players I think appreciate it because they know their time is limited as well. They don't want to be sort of going into something and then 4 hours later it's like, oh actually we need to stop now, and you're only halfway through.
The other thing is the nature of a convention game means you can't really sandbox.
No, it has to be quite a linear game, kind of going from A to B to C.
But I try to, I say, it depends on the game, because I remember when I ran Meet You in France at UK Games Expo a couple of years ago, that was a very linear game. There was this optional, 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 right? But I try to do a game if I can where I can do things in different orders. You did that particularly well in the first game I played with you at UK Games Expo.
Yes.
My
Cthulhu by Gaslight game. So yeah, I basically did it so there were several encounters in London, but you had the choice about what to do first. Certainly for the first bit, and then it slowly kind of came in like this, and then
it's a bit like Netflix's Bandersnatch thing. It's the illusion of choice.
Yeah, that was what I was trying to do, because I even presented a map and said, okay, these are the 5 points that you've worked out. And you're like, okay, why don't we try this one first? It didn't matter at all which order you did. Obviously, who you saw did have a little bit of an impact, but again, it's the illusion of choice. Whereas actually, no, there are just 5 points. These things happen in it, and then the next thing happens. Like I did it by when night fell, something happened, or when, I'm not spoiling it, but when a certain event happened a bit later, something happened, which is good to do. You can use sort of timestamps of things to say, okay, this is the next act, if you will, or the next chapter, of the scenario. More for you than the players, because the players will be too wrapped up in the story, but it's a good marker you can use for that. What was I going to say next? Well, I suppose props is the next thing.
Well, it's certainly true that if you bring a tablecloth as a GM...
You keep raving about my tablecloth.
No, it's a simple thing, it's easy to pack, and it makes such a difference, because you've got all these undressed tables. You dress your table with just a tablecloth, and the difference it makes, your character sheets pop out. I mean...
Well, you haven't specified one thing. It's black.
You do indeed use a black tablecloth. I borrowed it when I ran Meet You in France at Games Expo, and we have a laser colour printer here, so I did these character sheets that were sort of blue background and really stood out, all sci-fi tech, and all that kind of stuff, because arty stuff. With a little white border around it, put them down on the black tablecloth, and people were looking at that table wondering what the hell this was. And it's a simple thing, but it can make a huge difference.
Even compared to white tablecloths, because you've got white character sheets on white tablecloths, it blurs the lines a little bit. The black then, just to me, in that sort of well-lit room, it does make everything pop. You can see things better, you notice more things. And especially with props, which are quite visual. Not all visual, but some visual.
Yeah.
You need to be able to look at it.
Don't often do props at convention games, though, because I want to travel a little bit lighter. Saying that, these days I'm a film crew, so we travel really heavy.
Yeah, and but, you know, with like props is just one idea. You don't have to have props, but it's playing on this whole thing with a convention that you want your one shot to not just be a bog standard adventure. You want it to be something that people remember. You want it to be exciting. You want it to be this memorable thing they can take away and talk about for months and months. Like, oh yeah, this amazing thing where I had to use a UV torch on this piece of music and all this amazing stuff came up under a table. We actually crawled onto a table, or we jumped off some chairs because of a parachute, or you know, you're going to remember those things. It's practical.
Ronnie says, I'm looking forward to the convention games I am running at Tabletop Scotland and also for Free RPG Day. 3 different games, 3 different systems because I'm a masochist. No, that's pretty normal for a GM to use different systems at conventions.
Yeah, I mean, okay, Free Hotel, but I had to run at least 5 games. And again, there are people who run like multiple of the same system or even of the same game. But no, I was ambitious and had to run 5 systems.
So just to clarify that, at UK Games Expo, if you GM 5 games, they will pay for your hotel.
It's not as simple as that. It's to do with how many hours contribute. So say if you had 6 players times 4, 24 hours, you know, for each game.
So the number of players that book.
Yes,
matters.
so it's to do with the number of hours. It's not just like 5 games.
Okay.
But
it works out to roughly 5 if they're full games.
Yes, if they're full, then yeah.
Okay.
So you can do that and Free Hotel, but oh my god, you are knackered by the end.
You know what? If I really wanted a free hotel, I think I'd run a mega game.
Yeah.
And just get all those hours done in one game and then enjoy the rest of the weekend.
Yeah. Okay, James.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
See you next time.
See you next time.
Glad to have you back. Now, there are other things you can do at a convention game.
Yes.
Something you raised before, I think in your video on the topic, was standing.
Yes. So, of course, when you are at a table, you sit at it, you normally have a DM screen, you might have some sheets behind or some post-it notes or whatever you like to use. But again, part of this bigger is better, exciting blah, try standing. Even for a bit, just for emphasis, if you're standing over your players, you know, you're kind of up like this and you're gesturing like this, people will look at you more. You're more noticeable, you're kind of projecting more. It's different, but it works because it's kind of your it's kind of hard to explain. It's less intimate, but in a good way, if that makes sense.
It's, to be honest, I don't think it'll work for everyone, but it is part of showmanship.
Yeah.
And if you're entertaining your players, and if you're that kind of person who's that kind of eye personality type, that influencer that likes to present, guilty YouTuber, sorry, then that definitely is something that will work for you. And you know, don't be afraid to try it. Just do make sure your volume doesn't go up too much above the tables around you.
Yeah, that too. But also, one problem you can run into with standing, certainly for me, is suddenly the DM screen doesn't quite work because it's not in your line of eyesight. If you lay it flat, then obviously people can see notes behind to a degree. So what I tend to do is either use a book and hold it, or I hardly use anything. I use like a few cards.
Yeah, I rarely use GM screens, to be honest. So
I think the only time I would use a screen just as a screen rather than looking at rules is maybe the Masters, just because it has to be secretive and
right.
whatever.
I mean, if your adventure calls for secret stuff, then yeah, absolutely. But I can't stand for 4 hours anyway. I just trying to remember, because Ronnie was in the Meet You in France game. Did I stand for some of that?
I think you must have done.
I think I probably stood
sure
and
you
sat
did,
in
yeah,
alternation, because legs.
By the end of my 5-game romp as well, yes, I was sitting
Yeah.
a few times. I think on the Sunday, god, my legs were hurting so much. I just had to sit in the end and kind of gave up.
Yeah, I have stood before though. Before I met you at Concrete Cow, I was standing for one, but that was because I actually used miniatures at a convention game, and I had to in order to reach everything. But it wasn't. It was more of a board game really than an RPG.
But Ronnie's got a good point. He says, when I run Toon one-shots, it keeps my energy up. Toon being very light-hearted and comical. But again, you can use this as an impact. So say you've got quite a sort of a big scene going on, stand up. But if your players are sneaking through somewhere, or if there's a lot of tension, sit down, bring everything closer together, cause that sort of
absolutely.
change.
You can use your voice volume as well to drive that kind of atmosphere.
Yeah. Although, again, kind of in the opposite way, don't go too quietly because there will be noise around you.
Yeah. Now, one other thing, right, I'm going to have to skirt around a trope here. But look, if you're at a multi-day convention like Games Expo or Gen Con...
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
Especially if the weather's good. It's a long day, you'll be going around, like you might be shopping, you might have to rush at various points in your day to get to places.
Have a bath.
Please. Because last year I had to sit for 4 hours with a GM.
So did I.
Yeah.
I was the opposite side of them, remember?
Yeah, we were the last to arrive at the table, so...
And then we realised why those 2 tables were free and the others weren't.
I appreciate the person in question had obviously been very busy for 3 days. It's just that... Have a bath! Right.
Or something. Like there was a lake next to the hotel. I mean...
Because I know some people don't like doing that away from home. I don't, and frankly, get over it. You're trapped in a room for 4 hours with you. Right. Ronnie said, yes, you did stand for some of that, Becky.
Yeah, right, I remember when I came in and you were like standing up in it.
Thulian Perspective, long time no see. When real life is a role play with no GM. What's that in reference to? Could be the Oda thing. Maybe. Right, now, playing at a convention game. Well, I mean, first of all, I'm just going to go over a couple of different conventions and tell you how you can play. So if you're going to UK Games Expo, you can buy tickets beforehand. Now, I like this system. I dislike having to buy, but because it's about £4 a ticket for a game. But, I like that system because you can browse all the games beforehand and in your own time choose one, and there's so many to choose from. You'd always find something in the slots you're available. The website could be massively improved, but it is what it is. And I like the fact I can get a game and I know I'm going to be in it, and I can go to Expo and I know Friday I'm busy playing games, and I know I've got a game on Saturday night, and I'm free to do the trade hall on Saturday, which is the wrong day to do it. If you're there for 3 days,
still do it anyway
do the
for
trade
some
hall
reason.
the other days. And that's great for Expo.
Yeah,
not every convention does that.
No.
So let's go down to a more medium-sized convention like Dragon Meet. Now, the sad reality is I haven't played in a game at Dragon Meet since it was in Kentish Town Hall. That's like 5 years ago or something. And there's a reason for that. They do their sign up by putting sign up sheets out at the entrance at something like 9:30 in the morning. I can't get to London that early. But all the games for the whole day are signed up at that moment.
Yeah.
So, and there's a huge huddle and people, whatever. if you don't live in London, you will not get a game of Dragon Meat unless you
No.
stay over the night
Night
before.
before.
And it's a one-day convention.
Yeah.
So there's that to bear in mind. The way the convention does sign up is going to impact how much you get out of that convention. Going down to a smaller convention, something like Concrete Cow, for example, in Milton Keynes,
Yeah.
happens twice a year. They do a much better system, I think, for if. So at the big end, you've got the Games Expo, where there's a website that drives all this stuff, and there's an app as well now. But at the other end, Concrete Cow, they haven't got those kind of tech facilities. What do they do? Before each of the 3 game slots at their one-day convention, they do the sign up, and new people get to sign up ahead of everyone else. So if it's your first time there, you get to sign up before everyone else.
Which I like.
I really like that. And then everyone else, they did have a system for making it not a rush. I can't remember what that was.
Yeah, I can't remember either, but it was a bit like boarding a plane.
Did
Where
we
it's
get
like,
tickets?
right, new players come first, now such and such people get to choose, then everybody else gets to choose.
I think, wasn't it raffle tickets? You had a-
Maybe, yeah.
something like that. But it was much more organised and stuff. So it was a really good way of doing it without any kind of tech.
Do you remember what Games Fest did?
Games Fest was kind of even more simple
tinier,
than that.
yeah.
The way they did it is they didn't have any sign-up sheet at all, and the GMs had to recruit people as people were walking past, which doesn't work.
No.
As a player, can you get a game? Do you happen to be walking past at that moment? And if you do agree to join a game, you might be waiting an hour before it starts. It's a terrible system, and we actually didn't go back to Games Fest because of that. Because we were there to run games that day, and it was like,
I was so tired that day as well, and I was wanting to concentrate on the game. I didn't want to recruit people. I'm not very good at that either.
it turned it into like a market stall, where you have to
Yeah.
shout to get people's attention in a room where people are trying to play. It was awful. And I know a lot of GMs didn't even get a game going because of how bad the
I
organised
saw
was.
these empty tables and it was so depressing.
So Ronnie says, Tabletop Scotland do kind of a hybrid when it comes to signing up. Of the available slot for any game, most but not all of the spaces can be booked, but some left over for signing on the day.
For singing.
Yeah. Games Expo as well, you can still book on the day if there's slots left over.
Yeah, and what's good as well is if, say, someone is ill and can't run, or you go to the Masters for the first round but then don't get into the second round, then you can go back and you can change your ticket for something else. So there is, that's still available.
There's a certain amount of flexibility there because they have sufficient staff to allow bookings and rebookings and stuff all on the fly, and they have a room set up for that.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. Right, let's move on to any more chat. No, we've caught up. So, do you think there's any advice for players though, other than how to go about getting into a game? But
well, I think I suppose it depends the size of the convention, but of course the larger ones are going to be more daunting potentially. But I would definitely say really try. Of course, apart from having a shower, getting there on time, making sure you've eaten beforehand, taking water. Just throw yourself in. Like if the DM's good, which they should be, frankly, but say they are good, then they will give you a whale of a time, but you'll have so much more of a better experience if you role play really well, if you get into your character, if you're getting involved, rather than kind of
I have to say, some of the best games I've ever played have been at conventions.
Yeah.
And part of the reason for that, it's a change of what you normally do in your normal group. You get to experience different ways of role playing, different systems. And I encourage you at a convention, try different systems, because it's a great opportunity to one-shot something without committing to buying books and seeing if you like a system. I don't think I've ever played D&D at a convention.
No. Are you? Because I know you're in a couple of games. Are you playing any new systems for you that you've not done?
Yes, and it was some weird system that sounded like it was some kind of Marvel superhero name. I have no idea. I don't know, like Red Dawn or something. Not a clue.
Okay.
Not a clue.
I'm playing in a Simbarown game, and I'm finally going to actually see what all the hype is about. Because the people who do own the system will not stop talking about how good it is. It's like, okay, the books are beautiful and they're expensive. I don't want to invest yet, but yes, I will play in a game and see what it's like.
I've tried so many systems at conventions. Did for the longest time though struggle to get away from Powered by the Apocalypse. It kind of dominated for a while.
Really?
I had so many variants. One of the best games I was ever in was actually Powered by the Apocalypse. Don't know if she still watches Pair of Geeks, but if you're out there, Katie, thank you for that amazing game. It was it's still one I will remember that forever. When I played a ghoul that it was a Monster Hearts game.
About this.
The suicidal ghoul who couldn't die.
Yeah.
Most of the other Powered by the Apocalypse games that I've played have been amongst my worst convention games. Not the worst, but not my favourite system.
Ryan does have a good point though, in that, because you get to choose games, if you really don't like any of the games, then don't play in any of them.
No, I say try something.
Well, yeah, if you're open to try it, great. But if you are adamant of, no, I will not like it, no, I won't enjoy it, then don't sign up.
Oh, duh. But, like Saturday night at the expo this year, I knew I was available for a game, so I was looking at just games in that slot. Mm-hmm. Please improve your website, Games Expo. I was looking at just games in that slot, and I couldn't find anything that really appealed. So I just went through, nothing in terms of system was one I wanted to try, anything like that. So I just started going through them and reading the descriptions, and I went for one where the GM clearly knows how to have a laugh. Right? I just looked for the funniest description of a game, and I signed up for that because I thought I'm going to have a good time. If the GM's funny, I'm going to have a good time.
I know
Saturday night.
I know some people who really don't like sort of comical, hilarious style role playing.
What point of a con it is.
Yeah, but I definitely agree with a con. Actually, this is good, and a lot of the time, as long as it's a decent story, it's great. I'm still gutted because there was this amazing looking Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles one shot on the Saturday morning.
Yeah.
Great way to start the day. It sounded great, but they were ill, and it's like, no, I've been looking forward to it so much. But also, Paul is playing in, he's running a game on the Friday morning, which is something like not a game about goblins or something. There's a lot of breaking of the fourth wall, or sometimes people do it's the end of the convention and things like that. So there's a lot of funny stuff that happens, and I think it's good to have a change of pace. Do a serious one, then do a funny one.
Well, with Expo being 3 days, and I do the Cthulhu Masters on the Friday, because that's so serious, usually Saturday morning I'll do something funny, because I've been so heavy role-playing the night before.
Although, we're not doing any in the morning.
We're not, which is why my Saturday evening games are funny ones.
Yes.
But that's just this year, because we've got press stuff to do.
Yes.
Nathan says, hate to say it, Ronnie, but good advice applies to anyone under 30. Oh, that good advice applies to anyone under 30.
Okay. 2 more years for me to go then. And then I can just break all the rules.
I can't tell you, Nathan continues, how many players I have on Roll20 showed no interest in any of the other characters or even the story. They seem to be there strictly to be the centre of attention.
Oh, he's being sarcastic, I see.
Yeah, it's the... I can see why that would happen more on something like Roll20 than anywhere else.
Oh, yeah,
because
definitely.
It's kind of the computer game mentality.
Yeah, but things like Roll20 Fantasy Grounds are very different from a convention. Very different.
Although they do each, I believe, have their own convention.
They do, but that's not the point.
Nathan continues to say the whole selfie generation isn't attracted to D&D to share, cooperate, support, or anything like that. They seem to just see it as another venue to say I'm here and this time as a underscore. You know, I do disagree to some extent with that.
I'm under 30. Hi. I really don't like selfies or taking pictures of myself all the time.
No, you just look in the mirror. So, not wrong. No, I think it's a little unfair on the under 30s there, Nathan.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, you haven't even mentioned
do-
avocados. Come on.
Yeah, avocado toast, come on. No, but I understand what you're saying and why, and I think there are communities online where that is definitely more of a factor. Ultimately, you know, if you're playing a pick-up game with random online strangers, you're gonna get random online strangers. They're either massively into D&D, like kind of have a YouTube level of massively into D&D, because they really want to play it at every available moment, or they're using those tools because they can't get a game in real life, which may be for good reason, but might also be because of them.
Yeah, but like for example, for me, there was a time when all my games were online based because I couldn't really afford to go elsewhere to places to visit people and play games. There wasn't really a real life group either that I could use, so it was all online.
You did do one real life group in that period.
Yes, but we met very irregularly, like literally once every few months. Whereas an actual weekly thing, that was all online, and that was just, it was really good, it was amazing, and I was saying to you this morning, without it, I think I would have gone crazy.
There might be good reason, or there might be
not very good
because
reason.
of them.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
So you do get more of that kind of player online. Nathan says, "Sorry, Jayson, I live in a rural area and we don't have conventions anywhere, and you don't fit my rant. You're awesome. Sorry about the age part." Well,
That's okay.
You know, when you're in a rural area, that's one of the things where I say, you know,
well,
it's
yeah.
sometimes. Or scheduling amongst your friends can be a problem, so
but
online can be great.
To be honest, like with the expo, for example, I'm seeing so many younger people, I'm not talking like just little kids, but people in their 20s, maybe sort of 17, 18, 19, excuse me, who are joining, you know, role-playing stuff, doing all that. It's very vibrant. There are lots of people out there, honestly. And technically I'm not even part of the selfie generation, that's Generation Z. I'm the millennial, so I can't afford houses and eat too much avocado toast. There's a big separation.
I think your generation has it right though. I do like millennial toast. Let us see what is next on our list. Yes, see, we're supposed to go now smoothly into another little bit about Com Plus. Because we're talking about, you know, how to get games at a convention. Well, of course, there's always Com Plus.
Yes,
now,
which is online.
Com Plus runs between October 11th and 13th this year. So
Put it in your diaries,
online
put it in your diaries.
convention.
Or your phones, if you're selfie mad.
And everyone that watches Pog should be there. Last year at the convention, I quickly put together an event booking system, and it was functional, but it didn't have very good communication tools. Some of the games didn't come off.
Yeah.
You say it like it was broken. The things I did worked well.
It wasn't broken, it just needed work.
The things that I did worked well. I just I didn't do all the things maybe it needed to have. So I'm going to write a brand new event system this year from the ground up. I'm going to do it once we get back from Expo and have recovered.
Yeah.
It's going to be my project for a bit.
Okay.
And it's going to be much better. It's going to have better communication tools.
I was going to say, it's kind of awful, saying it's going to be much worse than the previous one.
One of the things about last year's, because of really the heritage of Brigade Con, that kind of birthed Con Plus, is you were locked into A, having a Facebook account, and B, the games had to be streamed on YouTube.
Yeah.
We're doing away with the YouTube requirement and the Facebook account requirement now. So you won't need either of those things. You can just have a game in Skype if you want. It doesn't have to be broadcast to YouTube.
You're doing Twitch, you're doing Discord.
Yeah, however you want.
What's that other one called? Me or something? It's like
There's loads. There's
yeah.
loads. It won't happen for this year, but in the future I very much hope that the Complus website itself will be able to handle video conferencing.
Yeah.
I know how to write it, I just need servers and the time to write it. And I might even be able to, at some point, put video encoding relay. So anyway, well, I built that thing for the Mevo camera to know that relayed the video. Anyway, Ronnie says, I am definitely hoping to be running a game online over the convention and also some board game plays to my channel for Complus 2. Cool.
Well, that's another thing, and that if you want to play a board game or even broadcast it, you can do that as well. It doesn't have to be role playing. It can be a card game if you want.
Now, at this moment in time, and I don't think it's going to change, attending the Complus 2 is completely free. Booking with the event system, a better than UK Games Expo event system, is completely free. Actually, last year's was better. It's just they don't have better communication tools. They just give you a slip with your ticket. So yeah, no. Anyway, sorry, where was I? We're going to build a good event system, okay? A good way of communicating, and we're going to leave it running after the con.
Yes.
Right? So it'll get better and better, and hopefully build a community around it. Because, like, if I make a good tool and can keep enhancing it over time, why save it to just one event in the year?
Exactly.
Why not allow you guys to use it to organise your games
and
going forward and meet people and so forth?
Yeah, and I'm finding with a lot of people who do still play online, they would prefer to do something regular. They don't want to just kind of do one thing or kind of fit in somewhere. It's like, no, let's just play every Monday or every Friday or whatever. And then, you have the platform to do that.
Scott Poe hopes to be playing a game of Complus 2.
Play Uber, an online game at Complus 2.
Play an Uber online game at Complus 2. I think. Words around.
Absolutely. Unless there's an awesome system called Uber. That just reminded me of a system called Godlike, which is over there. It's about, like... It's there. Basically, you are fighting Hitler and his Ubermensch. It's all very ridiculous and stupid, but also brilliant. It's further along. Right. That one.
Godlike.
Matthew Dawkins ran a game of that for me many years ago at the Expo 20-something.
Oh, we lost our
But it
chat
was
connection.
very cute. I wouldn't mind looking at that again. Actually, it was a good system. I can't remember what.
Superhero role playing in a world on fire, 1936 to 1946. So just either side of World War II.
Basically. And these Ubermensch, these massive beefcakes who can fly and do crazy stuff.
No bright spandex, no pulp machismo. In the face of a world on fire, ordinary men and women emerge who possess the talents their times demand, but who are still as vulnerable and eventually expendable as the troops in the foxholes.
But yeah, I got a lovely copy of it. It's got a sort of glossy paper.
Yes, it has, isn't it? And a kind of a blow-by-blow of... I was going to say a blow-by-blow of World War II, but it's saying one of the entries here is America turns its back on the Constitution. Don't think they'd ever do that.
Well, no, there's like
Mussolini prepares for non-existent victory.
Yeah, there's a few like alternative historical things.
Cool.
But yeah, it's cool. Yeah, it goes back in the Hollow Earth. Oh wait, no, it's not Atlantic. Never mind.
I swear I was putting it in the right place, and it's now
Very.
not alphabetically sorted.
I'm sorry, I'm getting tired. I didn't tweet.
Nathan says, I prefer face-to-face gaming, but it's difficult to get a game going in a rural area, so have to turn to Roll20. Wish there were more options.
Well, we're giving you more options.
We are. But, I mean, look, we're not going to have virtual tabletops this year. The focus this year is going to be on producing good communication and organisational tools. What I'd like to do after that, if I can in the future, maybe the following year, is provide a mechanism for video calling without having to use any other software, just do it all in the browser. A kind of a replacement, I suppose, for Hangouts, but not Hangouts itself, and it probably won't stream to YouTube because the servers for doing that, I think, will be out of our budget. We'll need money to do that, which are not going to happen. Actually, just doing video chat, I need to have. So anyway, don't worry about that. I do have ideas for other things I would like to do in terms of tools. I think we're looking quite a long way in the future at that point, and
a few years.
You know, and I don't want to commit to things now that I either can't do because of situation, circumstance, or other projects needed for the convention. But you know, if I can retire, you will get stuff. Unfortunately, I can't retire.
Well, not at the moment. You can't.
No, I would like to.
Yes, it is. It's the OR system. I was trying to remember what it was called. Yeah, Godlike uses the OR system. To be honest, because it was a few years ago, I can't fully remember it, but I did like it. I believe it was percentile, and I do like percentile, but in a different way from, say, Call of Cthulhu. I just can't remember exactly. It's so bad. I can't remember, but it was Sunday morning, okay? Wild Talents is a modern superhero game using the same system. I have not heard of Wild Talents.
Okay.
But okay.
We have one more topic.
We do.
But it is getting late. However, it was a title topic. So let's just...
Well, then we must do it.
Then we must.
Yeah.
But we might need to keep it a little bit brief. We'll see. We'll see. Nathan H. asks, if you had a Patreon for dispensing your geniuses and financially supporting your awesome technological escapades and plans for world domination, I would support it.
Literally right behind us.
So, this is what we call the most awesome people in the world, and we like to read their names out each week. They are Russell Higgins, Johnny Mangina, Umbo, Mark Thrall, Paul Brandon Fishwick, Dave Poirier, Fijuk Enterprises, Philip Bate, and Elizabeth Tripreditcal. Go to patreon.com/pairofgeeks. Now, we haven't yet taken any money out of Patreon. We've been letting it accrue, and with good reason, because last year we used the advertising revenue from the full history of the channel to
the
YouTube channel to pay for the shipping costs for all the prizes for Com+1.
Yeah. Because these
didn't
things are
cover it
quite
all.
heavy and they're not cheap.
Yeah. There wasn't enough revenue to cover all the shipping costs, but I topped it up with my money to make up the rest. This year, we're going to use the Patreon money. And then the year after, hopefully we'll have more Patreons and it'll all be fine.
Having said that, we are working with the Butterfly Project in terms of getting things shipped.
Yeah, yes, the Butterfly Project. The Butterfly Project have agreed to pay the shipping, provided it's no more than half of what's raised.
Mm-hmm.
However, I don't really want them to.
Yeah.
I want it, like, I'd be okay if we raise loads and loads of money. I'd be okay with, right, okay, all right, there's £500 of shipping, but we raised 5,000 or 50,000 or whatever. Great, but we're aiming to raise 5,000 over 2 years. I don't want them to pay £500 of shipping. That's 20%. It's like too much. So I want to use the Patreon money to pay for the shipping this year. if there's enough of it in there to do that. I don't know if there will be. I'll probably do a mix of topping it up again and using and getting the butterfly to pay for some of it. So that's what we use the Patreon money for at the moment. I'm hopeful that over time we'll get enough Patreons to maybe get me a new computer. It's 11 years old, so 4K videos are off the... can't do them at the minute. It takes too long to render because my computer's 11 years old. Did I mention it's 11 years old?
Mine can render 4K. Although I've only got a 1080 monitor. not that I'm needing a 4K monitor, but
I don't have 4K monitor either. But to be honest, most people don't. But it does do such a beautiful job of the miniatures videos when you do it all in 4K. That's our plans for the Patreon at the moment. So if you did want to back that, we would be delighted to have you.
Yes.
Having your name read out each week. So Ronnie says, or is the one roll engine where you roll a pool of dice and look for matches.
That's right.
Which provide what is called the height and width, which decide if you succeed and by how much. Matches to what?
As in matches of numbers. So if you get like 4 2s and 3 3s or something.
Okay.
So it's the height and width. So how much you.
I've never been that keen on dice pool systems though.
I know, but I quite like.
It takes a long time to interpret the results. But as long as if they're doing multiple dimensions with it, I suppose that's something.
Yeah.
Still wish to donate via PayPal to your channel. You can't donate. Does Patreon accept PayPal?
I didn't think it did.
It might not.
I'm not 100% sure.
What you can do, however, is donate by PayPal to the Butterfly Project.
Yes.
We don't accept PayPal donations, apparently, because Patreon. The only thing we got is Patreon and adverts. But if you do have money in PayPal and you want to do something good with it, my hearty recommendation is to donate it to the Butterfly Project using the Complus.live website. And the reason I suggest to do it there is twofold. Firstly, the charity themselves don't really have a good way of donating outside of things like Just Giving, which are kind of horrible to use. But secondly, so yes, do it on Complus because it's easier and better. Secondly, if you do donate on Complus.live, we get to track the money against our fundraising total and the amount of money we've raised so far, and we're trying to raise £5,000 over 2 years for this amazing charity. They do such great work. You can find out all about it on Complus.live. My voice is starting to go because we've been on so long. We still haven't talked about Nathan H has become a member of our cabal.
Our cabal. Our
cabal.
Football cabal.
Ooh, yay, thank you. You know what's really awesome about that is that means we've got 10 Patreons. We're in double digits, provided no one leaves.
My god.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Cess will be most pleased. At least on Patreon. Lol.
What was I saying before I was completely distracted by the fact we got money?
We've got that final topic.
Yes.
What are
it's
they?
a word beginning with P, I swear.
Oh!
Prophecies.
Prophecies.
You know what brought this up? It's that thing we talked about, we got moaned at talking about it for 40 minutes once. It's Game of Thrones. Because there were 2 prophecies towards the end of that. And I thought they did one brilliantly and one terribly. But I wanted to talk about how to use prophecies in RPGs.
Yeah, we're not going to do a big rant, by the way.
No. I mean, there's no point discussing Game of Thrones this week. We all know it's terrible. We all know it's because the writing room was full of lots of white men and nobody else. We all know the
actors kind of struggled to actually say, "Oh yes, it was really amazing. Yeah, we loved it." Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But the prophecies thing is interesting because George R.R. Martin deliberately wants to subvert fantasy tropes. Now the Valonqar prophecy, that's the one where Cersei would be killed by the younger brother.
Yeah.
I know not everyone will agree with this, but I like what they did there in that she was killed by the actions of both of her younger brothers.
Yes.
I thought that was great. The Azor Ahai prophecy, they forgot. And there were so many ways they could have done that with cool and interesting twists. They could have tied it into... Now here's the bit where I think it's relevant to RPGs. Arya was destined to kill brown eyes, blue eyes,
And
green eyes. And they only made a deal of that because the Night King had blue eyes. But what if they had tied it into the brown eyes and the green eyes, thinking Daenerys here, you know, Jon Snow rebellion, Arya, Daenerys kills Jon Snow, Arya, Azor Ahai kills Daenerys with some random flaming improvised implement. Boom, we've got Azor Ahai prophecy being fulfilled, and it ties in to the green eyes thing. Now, the reason I say this can tie into role playing is this is the kind of, you know, the eye colour thing is the kind of thing as a GM you can put in as a prophecy. It's that thing that can be used in multiple ways. Because if as a GM you're too specific about your prophecy, it might go wrong.
Yeah, the players will find a way around it. They will.
Yeah. And so if you're vague in how you set your prophecies up, if you're going to use them in your game, or have multiple ways it can be interpreted, there's a lot to be learned, I think, from the way they did that Valonqar prophecy. I mean, that really, you could argue that they failed to deliver on that prophecy.
Yeah.
And yet they did. I thought that was great. You know, it really twisted the trope. And you know, that's the kind of thing you can do as a GM to use a prophecy in your game.
I just thought of a little quirky one from my youth. Did you ever read The Box of Delights?
Isn't that a Turkish delight?
No. It's a box which allowed you to go small or things like that. It was like a magical box, and there was this evil guy looking for it, and he forced this imp creature to tell him, you know, when will I get this box? And he prophesied, it will be under your hand today. But he meant it literally, like he was literally standing next to the box and it was right there, right under his hand. He never noticed, he walked on, he never got it. And the imp completely, like, was just so gleeful about this. And like, you never noticed! So
Ronnie says, I am running a fantasy game now where there are prophecies and dreams, and I have to keep it vague, but with one bit of truth which may not become apparent until later in the campaign.
I think prophecies do have to have truth in it, or else it's
a
bit
you
kind
can't,
of like anticlimactic.
Yeah, you can't do Azor Ahai prophecy and then not have it.
Yeah, guys.
You've got a Valonqar.
D&D.
You've got to do the Valonqar prophecy where it came true but in a really different and twisted way. But there is another way to do prophecies without just being vague or interpreting it very differently. And that is to tell a story out of time sequence order.
Yes.
Because you can start with the end of a story in role playing. Not very many people do it. Most people, when they run a game, they tell a story in a completely sequential order. But you don't have to. If you jump little bits ahead and little bits back, it's kind of almost writing a prophecy in itself by telling it out of time sequence. But it allows you to move the players around without, and railroad in essence, because you know where you're going to end up in any given bit. But you can allow freedom for the players to do whatever they want at one point in time, but they know in the future they're going to be in this place, so you can actually do a time skip to get there. You know, it doesn't. You can have a bit of unspecified adventure time where they get to that other place. I mean, I did this in the corporation game that you hated.
I didn't hate it, but go on.
I'm not sure I've recovered from that yet, to be honest. I know
relationship silence.
I know it had a give me a moment, guys. I know like the second and third episode I really wasn't proud of at all. And I know there was a couple of other weak ones in scattered amongst it, but I thought a lot of it was actually very good.
I think the main thing that I disliked was it was just, again, it was rammed up to 100 all the time. There was never any respite. Whenever something crazy and comical happened, it almost kind of felt like, oh yeah, it's just sort of happened again, and that kind of exhausted me a bit. But that's just me. That is my opinion.
Ronnie says, have we done that one?
Yes.
Alright, I need to clear that then.
Yes.
Ronnie says, we love the corporation game.
Well, there we go. My opinion, his opinion. Yeah.
Nathan says, as a DM, I only used formal prophecy once, and towards the end of the 11-month campaign, the characters got to travel back in time to physically see it being originally foretold for one last clue. Phil also says, fantastic game, loved it. Now that's interesting what Nathan was saying there about having getting an extra clue by going back in time.
Yeah.
So, because yes, there's of course two ways. I mean, time travel, of course, is another way of telling a story out of order.
Yeah.
Except you're telling it. See, what I would do personally, if I'm doing time travel, I would actually role play. I think the past first. If I've got characters that role play, I'd role play them back in time before they get to the start of the adventure. Like it'd be the opening scene, and they'd be like, "What? How did this happen?" And I had all this stuff. This is in the future, and then when they get to the end, it'd be like, "Oh, that was in the past," which I think would be a really cool twist on that. But I've done time travel though, so I try to avoid it. I've done it in a few adventures. So
Phil says it's done very well in Horror on the Orient Express.
Oh, in the book. The module, the Cthulhu module.
The module, yeah. I've read the novelised. I've read the novel version where someone did that. It's down there, the Express Diaries.
Express Diaries. This one.
Yeah.
I knew we had something to do with that. So we don't have the actual module.
That was a prize I got for Cthulhu Masters for running it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I've got prizes from the Masters as well,
really
but that's because of my results.
The end. Really dark. Gruesome.
Yeah, I haven't read the module, so...
Neither have I. I don't know the nitty-gritty of it on a mechanical level, but I know the story.
I tend to avoid modules, but I do like getting ideas from them, and that obviously is one where there's a good idea you can get. Oh, okay,
we love you, Tuska. Bye.
Bye. So, yeah, Prophecies, I think, are a great tool that are underused in RPGs, and I think we need to return to the subject of Prophecies later and go into it in more depth.
We could do a video on it.
We could at some point. However, the next video No, it wasn't a no. I was going into the next point. The next video we do is probably going to be... Well, we might... Here's the thing. I don't know if it's possible, but I'd like to try doing a video live from the expo. I don't know if it's possible, but there's a press room.
Yeah.
With internet capabilities, and I know that Beasts of War channel live stream from that press room.
They do.
They have a separate studio that we won't be allowed to use, I think. But we can use another room, which is shared. Might be worth a shot. Might bring a laptop for that.
I thought the press thing was like walking around the trade hall looking at stuff.
Oh, that's the press preview. I'm talking about the press office. Of Fall 2.
Hello, N20 Games!
Hi, N20!
I'm just trying to decipher what on earth my fiance is talking about.
Okay. As press, we get access to the press office of Hall 2.
Never heard this. Is this a new thing?
No, but we've only been press once before and we didn't use it last year because we had enough going on anyway.
Yeah, but I did not know this was a thing.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Well.
Read the blurb. So we might try to do a live stream from the expo just for cool factor. Although I honestly haven't been in that studio. I don't think it's got a view over the tradables or anything.
It probably doesn't. It's probably a little tiny room.
I imagine it is, and it's probably a shared space, and there'll be somebody trying to work in there saying, "Shut up!" So, but we could maybe do something in the evening. I don't know. We'll see what the facilities are like and take a view on it. And after that, it will be 2 weeks' time on the Friday is when our next live stream will be. So we're actually sort of taking a break for the week in terms of streaming because we're about to go and do a load of work for the con. So, because at Expo, we are really working for Con Plus 2, it's what we're doing. We're going around getting sponsors to make Con Plus 2 better.
Yes.
So, we're going to be gone for 2 weeks. Maybe we should do
technically 1 week.
Yeah, maybe. I'm just thinking, I'd like to do something before then.
We could do a Facebook Live thing just on our phones while we're there. Or something for the Patreon.
If we can get enough bandwidth, we will try to do something.
Yep.
We'll try to do some rubbishy low quality Facebook video maybe.
Shaky, hey guys, what's up? I'm gonna practice my selfie hand.
Because you're a millennial.
Yeah, apparently millennials.
I'll try and put maybe a phone mount inside the Steadicam.
Apparently millennials are the same as Generation Z. I do have a GoPro stick, you know. Never used it. But I bought one.
Not a GoPro, it's a selfie stick. We have 2 selfie sticks.
See, I don't even know what the hell they're called. That's how generations are.
Right. Thank you so much for watching, guys. And thank you also to our wonderful fruit bowls, Russell Higgins, Jolly Mangina, Umber Mum, Profil, Brandon, Fishwick, Dave Parrier, Fugue Enterprises, Philip Bate, Elizabeth Chiper Didcall, and apparently Nathan H.
Yes, Nathan H.
Yeah. We'll be reading his name out next week with all of the others. So, thank you very much for watching, guys. And I've just realised I started to go into a goodbye spiel and I haven't even got the screen up.
No, you haven't. I was just thinking that. It's like, why have you got your hands down here?
Nathan says it would be nice to see what an expo is like. I support this idea. We'll do our best. N20, I arrived just in time to catch 3 minutes. Yeah, I know, but like I've run out of voice. Listen to my voice, it's completely gone now. We've been going for over nearly getting on for 3 hours.
We're not getting on, it's 2 1/4.
Something like that.
2 1/4.
Friday nights, every Friday now, apart from next week because of Games Expo.
Yeah.
That's when you can catch us. Spend your Fridays with us.
Yep.
And I'm going to go and restore my voice to human capabilities. Bye.
Do it. Bye, guys. Bye. Bye.